it's still goddamn perfect.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Hey man, we are here to see content, not results. Okay, alright, fair enough. Let's get to it. Personally, Bloodborne is the peak of Souls gaming. I'm not deriding when I say that I'd rather finish Bloodborne 6 times instead of Elden Ring twice. In this video, I'll explain why I am one of those delusional yet Chad people who are still waiting for Bloodborne 2 or at least a Bloodborne remaster. Grant us our wishes, Fromsoftware. Grant us them. Easily second place when compared to all other Souls games FromSoft has made. I mean, it's my favorite, but I have to give credit to Sekiro for having such fun combat mechanics. So you might be asking, what makes it stand out in comparison to Dark Souls and Elden Ring? Let's start with the first reason. The weapons. For me, it has never been about quantity, but quality. Bloodborne manages to balance both perfectly. I have always been a katana weeb, so when I got my sweaty dex hands on that Chikage,
nice.
Aww. It was love at first sight. So after falling in love with the Souls formula after playing Bloodborne, I went out to buy every FromSoft game and platinum them in a span of 3 years, except for Demon Souls. When I saw that every katana had basically an upwards and a downwards slash as their moveset, I was severely disappointed. Personally, I would rather have 28 weapons, excluding the guns in Bloodborne, instead of 308 weapons as in Elden Ring. Because I know those 28 will feel very different from each other and they will have a big moveset as opposed to Elden Ring, where some are only distinguished by their Ash of War or some aesthetic difference. What's crazy is that I haven't even started talking about the trick options, where you can transform every single one of them into a different version of itself. Most of these change so much when you trick them that we could arguably be talking about 50 weapons instead of 28. Sorry, Tonitrus, you have your uses here and there, but being an electric boy doesn't strike me as a cool change. Tricking weapons also expands the moveset even further because you can do it mid-combo, which makes very cool new attacks. The movement. It's not right to compare Bloodborne with the rest in this topic because each game is intended to be played differently from a strategic point of view. You cannot compare Dark Souls' turtleness with Sekiro's parry-induced combat or with Bloodborne's aggressive style. So, I'll just say that I prefer the aggressiveness. The rally mechanic makes combats more frenetic, which consequently make the player take more risks. Generally, when you get hit in a game, you assume a defensive position, to heal if need arises or simply not to lose even more HP. Fighting games are a great example of this. Briefly, when you get hit, you find yourself in a frame disadvantage, so technically it's still your opponent's turn, which makes you assume a defensive position unless you know you can interrupt their next attack. Bloodborne adds a whole new option which is called Go.
It's Leroy Dragons!
If you get hit, you have a brief time window where you can recover some of the health you've lost if you land some attacks. Additionally, it's kinda redundant to say this, but the dashes that the hunter make when evading look much cooler than a roll. The parries. I love parries with guns in this game. They are somewhat easier to execute than, let's say, parries with shields, and feel much more satisfying. The sound it makes when an enemy gets staggered and the visceral fisting is just... Simply, I am a sucker for Victorian age architecture, dressing and music. Yharnam is my favorite tutorial zone from all their games. It feels so dangerous to go around Yharnam with those huge gothical buildings and fighting the residents with their cool-ass garbs and vests slowly losing their minds. One thing that I missed a lot in Elden Ring was to feel left alone with my thoughts while going through a zone. And that means no music. I think the choice to have no music in most areas might look lazy, but it works so well in Bloodborne. You can hear the wind, bells tolling, enemies mumbling. There's a lot of thought put in the background to compensate for the lack of tracks, which works wonders for the actual tracks in the boss fights because it makes them feel special. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are only 3 locations that have a track for themselves: Hunter's Dream, Upper Cathedral Ward, and Hypogean Gale. Sorry for completely butchering the pronunciation of that last one. The last 2 are very well implemented because the themes provide such a fearsome and horror sensation to zones that are already very creepy by themselves, especially Upper Cathedral Ward. Lord have mercy on horror casuals.
Nope.
Moreover, with not 1 but 2 themes going on here. One is Victorian England, and the second one is Lovecraftian horror. How did I guess it, you say? Well, I don't know. A wild guess, perhaps? Nothing to do with the thousands of tentacles and cosmic creatures you can see in-game. Nah, seriously though, Bloodborne's story, if you manage to understand it of course, feels very deep. Let's highlight that big if in if you manage to understand it, because I have consumed multiple lore videos by Vatividia and I still haven't caught on to everything. That shit is so messed up it puts Kojima to shame. Let's not dig too much into it, shall we? Otherwise we might need to extend this short video into a podcast. Let's just say that the cosmic horror of coexisting in a plane of existence where there are almighty beings that our small human minds cannot even start comprehending is excellent. As usual, boss fights in FromSoft games are a mixed bag, and this one's no different. Cleric Beast and Papa Gascoigne teach you the 2 basics of the game. When you fight huge beasts, play it safe and stick to their back. When you fight a humanoid beast that staggers or a hunter, go all out, be aggressive, which makes them great tutorial bosses. Such a shame that Gascoigne is a huge barrier for newcomers. Only a 44% of players defeat him, the first mandatory boss of the game. Blood-Starved Beast is fine. It is the first boss that makes you manage inventory and use other objects other than your gun, sword and vials to get the upper hand. Since it inflicts poison, you have to be on top of that meter, otherwise your health bar will quickly drain. Vicar, whatever. Amelia has a cool intro cutscene, but feels more or less like a cleric beast with a healing move. They even share the same soundtrack. The Witches of Hemwick are the first real lame boss, but they do a good job at introducing the insight mechanic in the game. The more insight you have, the more difficult boss fights become, since they are added new moves to their arsenal. In the Witch's case, if you have no insight, they won't spawn those huge shadows that for some reason won't aggro unless you're right in front of them. Martyr Logarius is a cool-ass fight if you can keep your hunter from falling from the roof every other try. And your reward is my beautiful Chikage, so yeah. Fuck the walk back from the lantern to his fight. Fuck it very hard. I mean, seriously, am I supposed to lose life on purpose on that drop every time? My OCD doesn't allow me to start the fight with no full health. So here I am, wasting 1 vial every other try. The developers are a bunch of FromSoft holes for that dick move. I'm joking guys, I love you. Shadows of Yharnam are your typical gank boss fight. Usually 1v2s and 1v3s are pretty annoying, but they have a cool factor. Every time you kill one of them, the others mutate or get new moves. So this fight can be played differently each playthrough. You can first kill the shadow that summons fireballs, so you don't have to deal with his magic, but the others get extended range to their moves. Or you can confront the melee guys first, although the magic gets crazily annoying by the end. So pick your poison. Rum is an asshole, since he doesn't do much else other than crushing you or raining down asteroids on your head. His spider pawns do crazy damage. They are the real hassle of this fight. You can make a lot of progress depleting his health, but all of a sudden, boom! A spider gets you off guard while pounding Rum and you're dead. You can try to kill all of them before confronting Rum, but there are just too many and it gets boring to do the same thing again and again and again if Rum manages to kill you. Amygdala is another spectacle to fight against. with its lasers and how it rips its own arms to have a bigger reach when she nears death. A very balanced boss fight, but fuck its defiled chalice counterpart. Fuck it very hard. Ebrietas is a whore, and I'm happy she was left behind by the Great Ones. Rot, you despicable devil. Rot! In all seriousness, she's a challenging boss fight, and I love it. The only thing I hate about it is that shield she covers herself with towards the end of the fight. You can't come close to attack her without losing health, but it's not too bad. Mikolash is a bit tedious, since you spend most of the fight running around after him, like you're chasing Wile E. Coyote. When you finally have him against the wall, he is not impressive at all for a person who's called the host of the nightmare. He hits you with his fists once or twice for very small damage, he uses Ebrieta's auger, the tentacles, and completely annihilates you with a call beyond if you're not careful. I'm serious, I was being one-shotted by that crap. All in all, not a difficult fight at all if you have the patience to chase him and the HP or the armor or the skill to avoid getting killed by a call beyond. Or you can just play very aggressive, stay close to him so he won't summon a call beyond, but you have to watch out for Augur of Ebrietas because it can stagger you every time. Gehrman is where the party's at. My story with Bloodborne was quite funny. I bought it back in summer 2017, played it, got to Machine Gun Jura, and quit because I wasn't built for FromSoft's games just yet. In 2020, I was listening to some gaming tracks with a friend and he suddenly told me, "Hey, I got a banger coming right up. It's called The First Hunter from Bloodborne." And I was like, "Oh shoot, I played that game but I quit because I was not having fun." We listened to it together, and frankly, after finishing the track, I knew I had to be a man and get to the game's end to redeem myself for being a quitter, and to experience what it would be like fighting an epic battle listening to that track. As I progressed through the game, that was no longer the sole excuse because I was actually having tons of fun. Maybe I just got good after all. Anyways, Gehrman is an amazing battle. I have witnessed many tragic moments in gaming, such as Virgil dropping from the cliff in Devil May Cry 3, the many character deaths that come with playing Yakuza, because Kiryu, for some reason, cannot make sure that the handgun is not lying right next to the enemy he just defeated, Arthur Morgan. Shit, I don't want to talk about that one. Gehrman is up there with those moments for me. His intro alone makes you regret rejecting his act of mercy. Everybody gangsta until the handicapped mentor of the hunters gets up from his wheelchair to mow the lilies field with your ass. What's more, there's something so beautiful yet so tragic in fighting your mentor only because you want to release him from his nightmare and give him a rest. The worst is that he wants the exact same thing for you. Get those onions off me, please. The lore is great, so what else? Oh yes, it is as epic as boss fights come. He is a hunter, so he fights like you. Throughout the battle, you see him use his blunderbuss, trick his scythe, charge his ki as if he is mother fluffing Goku, until he utters his last words. He means that he is finally free from the nightmare that trapped him for so long. It's a way of saying thank you, and I thanked him for making me give this game a second chance. I left out some bosses from the base game like Dark Beast Pearl, Celestial Emissaries, Wet Nurse, and the One Reborn, and the Moon Presence, simply because they were meh boss fights, and I had nothing to comment on them. Dark Beast Pearl can be staggered to death, that's how I did it. Poor beast could not even stand up. Celestial Emissaries are a bunch of goofy goobers that give birth to a giant goofy goober. Wet Nurse get glued to her rear and make her even more wet. And the same for One Reborn, except before getting glued to his back or his legs, go around the balconies to clear those mages that shoot fireballs at you. And finally, the Moon Presence. The only thing I can remember from that boss fight is that move that leaves you with 1 HP, so yeah, not memorable at all. The Yharnam Headstone zones have an amazing presentation, easily the best part of this game. It includes Yosefka's Clinic, Central Yharnam, Cathedral Ward, Old Yharnam, Healing Church Workshop, and Upper Cathedral Ward. With the exception of Yosefka's Clinic, because there isn't much to it, exploration-wise at least, the rest of the zones are excellent, and that's awesome because you'll spend a good portion of the time this game offers you in Yharnam. The lore implications of Yosefka's clinic, the connectivity between areas inside of Central Yarnum, the small hub area in Cathedral Ward which connects with different zones of Yarnum, the verticality of the workshop, the tragic fate of the citizens of Old Yarnum, and the interactions with Jura, and the creepy cosmic atmosphere of Upper Cathedral Ward. That zone has it all. The Frontier headstone is kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. Despite the lore implications of Bergenworth, it is just a lecture building in the middle of nowhere next to a lake. Yurie, the Last Scholar, can pose a challenge if you're not decent at the game, although she's not too bad compared to the biggest douchebag that I'll mention later. Hemwick Charnel Lane is fine, I guess. I like the eerie atmosphere created by the ladies dancing around the bonfire. They look like psychopaths. But the map is so linear, no creativity there. There's also one new enemy, the big shadows with glowy eyes. Not much thought was put into the zone. Forbidden Wood is by far the biggest of these three. It has multiple shortcuts, a wide zone to explore, a very friendly NPC to chat with, if you know who I'm talking about. But it can be a chore to navigate as well, because snakes, freaking snakes everywhere. The paths are confusing, and combining this with how big the zone is, it can be an overwhelming experience for a first playthrough. Snakeheads are not the only annoying enemies, it also has dogs and gunmen. So yeah, not the biggest fan here. Regarding the unseen headstone zones, there isn't much to say about the abandoned old workshop. It's cool to see where the inspiration for the hunter's dream came from, and it's great to get the old hunter bone and fade away while dashing like a badass at the cost of silver bullets, but there's not much else to it. Yahar Ghul Unseen Village is nice, especially if you've been to the
Hypogean Jail.
The implications of the Blood Moon and what it does to the citizens is nice to witness. Respawning enemies, well, not so much. Forsaken Kinghurst Castle is eye candy, one of the most beautiful zones in the game, easily. The enemies are not bad, I mean, the ladies hardly pose a challenge because you can just delete them by spamming R1. The butlers or cleaners or whatever they are okay, although the stock wielding guys can be a pain sometimes. And the gargoyles can also be a hassle because of their grabbing attack. But the redeeming quality about it is that it is heavily telegraphed, so you won't get grabs by them too much. I think I speak for everyone when I say that I have always skipped the bloodsuckers at the beginning of the level. The boss fight is awesome, one of the best in the game, but I think it wouldn't have hurt them to put one more lantern before Logarius though. The multiplayer function in Bloodborne works this way. Mostly, if you summon someone, a lady with a bell spawns in the map, and as long as she is alive, you can be invaded by an enemy. In Nightmare of Mensis and Nightmare Frontier, there's no need to summon for this to happen. You can literally warp in Nightmare Frontier, walk out of the cave, and be invaded, which is a hassle for me, because I don't like to engage too much in the PvP aspect of the Souls games. At least, you can't get pointed down in this game. Haha, unlucky for you toxic PvP enjoyers. Regarding the zones, Nightmare Frontier and Nightmare of Mensis honor their names by being a complete nightmare to navigate. Let's play a game. If you had to summarize these zones with a few words, what would you say? For me it's poison lakes and annoying ass terrain for Nightmare Frontier, and as for Mensis, lame bosses, frenzy galore, and winter lanterns. I mean, seriously, even in my 6th playthrough, I still feel like it's a complete chore to go through these zones. At least Nightmare Frontier can be considered quote-unquote short if you know where to go. Mensis just takes forever to navigate through. Lecture building also is a meh zone for me. You have 2 floors full of spider snail students. You want to know why the spider part? Because some of them stick to the roof to land on your head as if they have nothing better to do. Come on, people, don't you have some exams to study for? I think I have to cut them some slack because they are pretty easy to engage. The level itself is just basically a medium for the nightmare levels, so yeah, not much to say here. Alert! Alert! Bullshit detector has been triggered. I think we have to address a few things that still make my blood boil in Bloodborne after 8 years. You got it? Okay, I'll see myself out. Bloodborne is an excellent game all around, one of the GOATs for me. But the following things are unacceptable. For starters, you are no longer capable of resting and resetting an area like you did in Dark Souls 1, for instance. If you want to reset an area, you have to either die or travel back to the Hunter's Dream. You can't even fast travel anymore to another lantern. You have to go back to the Hunter's Dream and travel back to your lantern of choice. In the PS5, this isn't as problematic, but my god, the loading screens in the PS4 were longer than your mom's rent when you didn't wash the dishes. And especially boring, since back in the day you only had the game title on top of a black background. Thankfully, they added materials and objects descriptions so you could entertain yourself to a minimum by reading the story of said objects to understand the lore a bit more. Blood vials are finite. This is literally the worst approach you can take to a Souls game, because you're going to die a lot. That means you have to go out of your way to farm for more healing items, but hey, you cannot reset the area? Yep, unless you go back to the Hunter's Dream and back to the lantern again. So you have to eat 2 long loading screens to fucking farm for healing. I don't know who came up with this idea, but I hope they understood that ain't it, chief, especially since this feature has never appeared in one of their games again. I remember when I first bought it, I was really struggling with Papa Gascoigne. It was my first Souls game, so I was playing Babyborn, and Gascoigne was playing Get Goodborn. Again and again, I had to leave the place to go farm vials, and during the 3rd, 4th farm session, I was like, wow, this is really boring. I might drop this game, thank god I didn't, because I don't like where this is going. The Chalice dungeons are okay to farm, get some blood gems, and variations of the main weapons. What's more, there are some original bosses that can't be seen in the game. I'm glad that they didn't take the easy Elden Ring route of using recycled bosses from the main story, or literally taking random mobs and slapping them a boss health bar. There are a few of those instances, but it's far from Elden Ring. So why am I putting this here if everything is so positive? Well, because the layout of most, if not all dungeons is so goddamn boring. Arrive, activate lantern, go find the lever, pull it, go kill the boss. Do this 2, 3, 4 times for each dungeon, depending on its depth. And sometimes the boss fight compensates for all this chore, and when it doesn't, you feel like a moron who ran around a maze just to fight Brainsucker boss or Pig boss. Come on, man. This might be an unpopular opinion, but the Chalice dungeons are a mediocre part of the game if you're not really there to find gems, uncanny lost weapons, or basically farm some blood echoes. In this game, there is a status called Frenzy. You see where I'm going, right? Yes, you do. Yep, fucking Winter Lanterns. Every Souls game has a bullshit enemy that you just want to run away from, and in this game, we got these bastards. I can't believe there are zones in Nightmare of Mensis that are infested with these things when just one of them can kill you just by looking at you. It's intense, which is fun, but you have to admit, it's full of bullshit. Many of you might not have noticed, but if you get hit while evading, you take additional damage. Hence why sometimes bosses just obliterate your health bar if they catch you mid-dash. I think I don't have to explain why this is an error in game design. Maybe it was done to punish panic dashers, but I don't think punishing someone for evading is a good idea. It's like the game tells you, hey, it's better to stay quiet and get hit instead of trying to evade. It doesn't make sense. Last but not least, the bloody Crow of Kanehurst. Can we just agree on how messed up this guy is if you want to finish him legit? The easy way is, wait for him to trick his Chikage, make him lose health because of the life-sucking properties of tricked Chikage, bait him next to the cathedral's door, and once he starts retreating back to his initial position, throw poison knives at him. It's a shameful victory, but if you want to be a real masochist, go head on at him and die because his gun can kill you in 2 shots, and die because his Chikage obliterates you, and die because he evades with the old hunter bone to perfection. Die, die, die.
You win!
Anyway, that's the appraisal for today. Despite its flaws, as of 2023, Bloodborne still is an incredible game with an excellent story, if you manage to understand it, remember? It has an incredible gameplay that would hook anyone who can get used to the Souls formula of funny suffering. I consider it art mainly for its resemblance to life. Every time you encounter a challenge, try hard enough and eventually you'll overcome it, no matter the difficulty. Just don't try way too hard, we don't respawn in real life as far as I know. Thank you for watching this brand new video about a brand new topic that hasn't been exploited yet. Sweet irony.
And their children forever.